welcome back to another video. I hope you've been keeping very well and having a beautiful week so far. This week I am really excited. I am going to be bringing you along to share with you what I eat for lunch this week, and I have like a goal for this video, but also like a personal goal for myself this week of keeping my lunches under 30 minutes when it comes to prep and cooking time. I think it's going to be a really fun challenge keeping these under 30 minutes, and I hope that these will give you at least one new vegan meal idea to try out at home for yourself. It is Monday, it is lunchtime, and I am hungry, so let's get into prepping our first lunch for the week. So for lunch on Monday, I made some rice paper rolls, and I started by cutting up some tofu into fingers and then transferring it into a bowl. And into the bowl I also added in soy sauce as well as olive oil, some garlic powder and some onion powder, and I mixed it all to coat it well. If you have a few hours on your hand, you can leave these to marinate and then come back to them later with some extra flavor in them, but if not, leaving them to marinate for only a couple of minutes also works well. So I essentially put these into a frying pan and keep an eye on them, flipping them, ensuring they get nice and crispy on each side. And whilst I'm doing that, I'm also prepping my fresh veg. So in rice paper rolls, I really like having cucumber and carrot for the most part. Sometimes I also like to add in some avocado, and all of the time I like to have some kind of fresh herb. In particular, coriander tends to be my favorite, and that is what I decided to use on this day. When it comes to assembling the rice paper rolls, I start with a piece of rice paper, which I dip and coat in some hot water before putting it onto my chopping board, adding on some rice, tofu, cucumber, carrot, and coriander. Then I'm going to wrap it up almost like a mini burrito in a way, and I'm going to make 3 of these in total. Now with the rice, I decided to use microwave rice this day, which is something I've been leaning into a lot lately when I don't have a lot of time on my hands but I want to make myself a nourishing lunch. But you can definitely cook rice over the stove if you have time, or you could use rice noodles if you would like to. So I actually decided to crisp these rice paper rolls up in my frying pan just with a little bit of olive oil. So I did that just for a couple of minutes on each side. And then I also made a sauce with some smooth peanut butter, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar, sesame seeds, and some water to thin it out, and I mixed this all together until it was nice and smooth. Then I served the rice paper rolls with this creamy peanut sauce on the side, and it makes for a really quick, easy, and absolutely delicious lunch that I honestly really wish I was having for lunch right now. For lunch on Tuesday, I made a pasta that I have been making on repeat so much lately. It's one of my favorite creamy pastas to date, and I think you're going to love it as well. I start by cutting up some brown onion, and then I also crush and dice a couple of cloves of garlic. Once I've done that, I am then going to transfer these into a frying pan with some vegan butter, which I have melted down. So once the butter is melted, I add in said onion and said garlic, and I leave this to cook up for a couple of minutes. Whilst that's happening, I also put a pot of water onto the stove to boil away, which we're going to cook our pasta in. In with the onion and garlic, I add some plant cream as well as nutritional yeast and veggie stock powder, and I mix this all together. Then I also add in some lemon zest as well as some lemon juice, 2 very important ingredients, as well as a lot of cracked black pepper, which also goes so beautifully in this pasta sauce. Once my water has all boiled, I'm going to put some pasta on to cook. This is also another meal that's really good to meal prep if you do want to double the recipe and make some extra pasta. I like having some kind of veggie with this pasta, usually Brussels sprouts, but broccoli is also really good. And so I just cut this up into florets, put it into a frying pan with some olive oil, salt, and some pepper, and just fry it up for a few minutes, tossing it so that it gets pretty well cooked on each side. I'm adding the pasta in with the creamy sauce, mixing this all together, and honestly it looks so amazing, and I'm going to transfer this onto my plate to have for lunch. Of course, on top of the pasta I'm going to have that broccoli that I had cooked. Once again, you can kind of just use whatever veggies here you would really like to and that you like to have in pasta. And with my lunch today I also had a passion fruit soda, which was so delicious and so fresh to go with my fresh creamy lemon pasta, and I really hope that you love this recipe as much as I do. Okay, happy Wednesday. I'm so excited to get into making lunch today because I'm making one of my favorite hearty and delicious meals. And before I get into it, I want to say a big thank you to my friends at Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Many of you have noticed recently that I am often watching something when I've got my headphones in, when I'm cooking and when I'm filming. And lately it's been one of two things. It's either me watching an episode of Below Deck or me watching and learning a class on Skillshare. If you've never heard of Skillshare before, it is the largest online learning community for creatives, and there are literally thousands of classes. It's a really great space to be able to enhance your creativity, to learn new skills, to be able to develop your career or perhaps a side hustle or passion. Honestly, one of the main reasons that I love Skillshare so much is that there is so much variety. Like, I have a lot of things that I really enjoy learning about, both for my career and for my life outside of work, and I feel like I'm able to just get so many new skills and learn so much in one place. I recently finished a class called Notion Masterclass, Maximize Your Productivity and Organization, which was honestly filled with so much good info. I use Notion as my way to organize my work week, and I feel like this just helped me unlock so much more that I can be using it for. And today, as I cook my lunch, I'm going to watch a class that I've been eyeing off for a while. The class is called Cooking Like a Chef, 5 Fundamental Skills for Kitchen Success. And I honestly love these cooking classes so much because I am a home cook and I really do like to learn new skills and ways to cook in the kitchen, and I find this to be just honestly super helpful. I honestly love having Skillshare to come back to when I'm ready to learn something new, and if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, the first 500 people to use the link in my description box will receive a free 1-month trial of Skillshare, so that's all linked down below if you do want to check it out. I hope you love it as much as I do, and now let's get into making this delicious, hearty vegan lunch that I am so excited to share with you. I'm not kidding when I say that I have eaten this miso noodle soup every single week for the past year. It is so good, and it starts super easily with some brown onion and some garlic being chopped and diced. Once that was done, I'm going to put some olive oil into a frying pan, add in that onion and garlic, and start frying it up. Whilst it's frying up, I am cutting up some broccoli into florets. Once again, you can sort of use whatever veggies you would like to have here. I think pak choi is a really good option if you have some on hand. And I'm also cutting up some tofu into squares so that they will fry up relatively easily. So into my pan with the onion and garlic, I'm adding in some soy sauce and white miso paste, and I am mixing this together, and it's pretty non-stick having miso paste and soy sauce in there, so I find this really easy to cook. I add in some water as well as some plant cream and some vegan chicken stock powder, and I mix this all together, reducing it to a low heat. Then into a separate frying pan, I add in some olive oil, I add in the tofu as well as the broccoli, and then I'm also adding in some corn kernels, which I love having in a noodle soup. I'm also putting a pot of water on to boil so that we can cook some noodles in there as well. So I really like cooking ramen noodles to have with this, but you could also use a sweet potato noodle or a rice noodle depending on what is your favorite. When it comes to serving, I start in a bowl with my ramen noodles, then I'm going to add the broth on top, making sure to get those chunky bits of onion and garlic for extra flavor. I'm then adding on the crispy tofu as well as the crispy broccoli and the crispy corn kernels, sprinkling with some sesame seeds and adding a little bit of chili oil on top. And this is just such a delicious, hearty meal. It's so good for lunch or for dinner. It's delicious, it makes me feel nourished, and I just highly recommend giving this a go at home. Now, I know I'm biased, but I swear this week of lunches is the best week of lunches I've had in a long time, and that doesn't stop with Thursday's lunch. I start by slicing a couple of bits of tofu, and then into a bowl I put some vegan chicken stock powder as well as some water. I mix it together and then add the tofu in to soak up all of that flavor. Whilst it's soaking away, I put some panko breadcrumbs, nutritional yeast yeast as well as corn flour, garlic powder, onion powder, salt and pepper into a mini food processor, and I blitz it all into a fine crumb. And this is going to be a crumb for the tofu schnitzels that we are making. So then into a frying pan I put some oil, so we're going to shallow fry these schnitzels. I remove them from the broth and coat well in the panko crumb that I've just made. This crumb is so easy to make and super delicious, and I honestly love making tofu schnitzels like this so much. As I said, I am shallow frying these until they are nice and golden on each side, so noticing when they're golden after a few minutes and flipping them over. Once they are nice and golden on each side, I remove them from the heat and put them onto some paper towel to soak up the excess oil, and then I also remove the oil from this frying pan before returning it to the heat, just on a low heat. I top the schnitzels here with some Napoli sauce, followed by some vegan cheese. I'll leave the details of the cheese that I like down below because it melts super well, and then I put the lid on so that that cheese does melt away. Whilst that's happening, I use a Turkish roll because I love having a Turkish roll with this sandwich, and I put it into the toaster. I also sliced up some fresh red onion, which I'm going to have on this sandwich. So once my bread was lightly toasted, onto the bottom I put some vegan mayonnaise. On top of that I then put some fresh greens, and then it's time to add on our 2 pieces of tofu parma. Wow, this looks so ridiculously good as I'm editing it. I honestly am like, okay, I need to go make this for lunch. Need to make everything in this video for lunch today, essentially. So I put the red onion on, I put the top of the roll on, and then I cut it open, and we see this delicious cross section of our tofu parma sandwich. This is like really hearty and honestly pretty quick and easy to make, especially because it does feel like something that you would order at a cafe or a restaurant. So if you do try it, I hope you love it as much as I do. Now when it comes to lunch on Friday, I made this pesto and veggie galette, and I start by slicing some zucchini. Then I put some oil onto some baking paper, followed by some puff pastry and some store-bought pesto. I'm going to spread out this pesto nice and evenly, and then I'm going to fold over the sides. Now something I would love for you to remember with this recipe is that you really can mix it up with what veggies you would like to put on here. I personally decided to have zucchini, as we can see. I drizzled some oil, put some salt and pepper onto this, and then put this into the oven, but you can definitely mix it up with things that you would like to have on it. I'm also slicing some tomato because I wanted to have some fresh tomato on mine. And then after my galette had baked for about 20 minutes, I removed it from the heat and I cut it into 4 even squares. And this is when we are going to put the rest of our toppings on. So of course I'm putting on that fresh tomato that I had previously sliced up. I also put some fresh rocket on top of these, and of course with this flavor combo I put some balsamic glaze on as well, which just completely elevated it. I love making galettes like this because I find them really quick and easy to make, but you really can mix it up, and a lot of the time use leftovers that you have in the fridge or the pantry as well. So it's a really good way to use up ingredients that you are finding it hard to make use for. Anyway, this was absolutely divine. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this week of lunches. I hope you enjoyed and found at least one new meal to try out for yourself at home. As always, a big thank you for being here and supporting me and my channel. I appreciate it so very much. Wishing you a beautiful day and week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you next week with another video. Have a good one. Bye.